Hi and welcome to the local installation and maintenance guide for BOLO version 4.0. In this guide I'll be showing you how to get all the dependencies needed to install the project locally onto your system and to be able to make changes to the code and then commit this code onto the remote repository. So first we'll be needing a few dependencies to get the project running. First we'll need Git for cloning the project off of GitHub. So to get Git, we can go to git-scm.com/download/win if you're using Windows. Otherwise, you can just go to /downloads and it'll have all the operating systems here for you to choose from. So since I have Windows, I'll click on Windows and it will start downloading Git. Once this download is completed, you can go ahead and run the installer, and what this is going to do is it's going to install Git onto your command line terminal so you can use the Git commands. So since the project is also built upon Node.js, we're going to need Node. So we can go to nodejs.org, and here we see the two current versions for Node.js. Usually we want to go with the right hand side version, the one that says current, because this one has the latest features. Currently it's at version 6.0. So we would click this button and download this version of Node. So again, what this is going to do is add the Node functionality to your system so that you can run the Node commands through terminal and also use the Node package manager. So now that I have those two things downloaded, I already did the install previously, so I already have the functionality added to my system. If I press Git here, I see all the commonly used commands, so I know it's already in my system. So the first thing I want to do is clone the repository from GitHub. So this is the project URL on GitHub, and I can get the cloning URL by going to BOLO 4, and here where it says HTTPS, this is the URL I need to clone the project. So I can copy this, then I can change the directories into where I want to put this project. So I already created a folder where I wanted to put this, so I'll go ahead and change here, and then I'll run the git clone command here to clone the project onto my local system. I'll paste the URL, and it's going to clone BOLO 4 onto my system. So once that's done, I can check the directory and see that BOLO 4 is now here on my system. So I can change directories into here, and now I see all the files associated with this project. So now I want to make sure I have the most up-to-date version of the project. So what I'm going to do is run the git fetch command to get all the branches from the remote. So I'll go ahead and do this, git fetch origin, and that's going to make sure I have all the latest copies of the branches from remote. Then I want to check out the develop branch off of GitHub, as this is where all the changes are made in terms of development changes. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this command and paste it here. There's an issue somewhere. Let's see. I guess there was an issue with the spelling or something. But now it's checked out all of the files from that branch and switched me to that branch. So now I should have all the updated files, and I should be able to start the application locally. But before I do that, I want to run the npm command. What npm is the Node package manager that comes with Node.js. And what this does is when you run npm install, it's gonna pull all the dependencies within the package.json file that's associated with the project, and it's gonna load in all those dependencies onto your system so that the application can run locally. Now here it's saying there is no package.json. So I must be in the wrong directory. cd code. Yeah, okay, so the package.json was in the code folder. So I'll run npm install here. And that's going to load all the dependencies. Now, depending on how many dependencies you have in the project will determine the amount of time that this process will take. There's a moderate amount of dependencies required here, so it'll take a while to do all the fetching of all the dependencies. Once the project dependencies have completed their installation, we will have a long list of all the dependencies like this, where each yellow entry is one of the dependencies that was installed. So the next step is to set up the environment variables required by the project. So if we go into the project directory through the GUI, you will find the .env file. This file contains all the environment variables for BOLO version 4.0. So I'll open it with Word, and with Notepad, and see that we have a field for Cloudant credentials, the session secret, password sought, and since we're also using Sendgrid as our email service, we will need to have one for the Sendgrid API key. So these services will have to be created on Bluemix in order to get this information. So let's go to Bluemix and see how we can get this set up. This is my Bluemix console, which is basically the main dashboard. And we see here that there's a portion that says services and APIs. This is where we have to go to add new services to our Bluemix account. So first we need Cloudant, which we are using as our database. So I'll type in Cloudant in the search bar and click on it. And here we see the Cloudant entry with all the information and plans available for this service. Basically, all we have to do is fill out the service name, the credentials name, whatever we want to give it. I'll give it install demo, and then select the plan and hit create. So once this service is created, we'll have to do the same thing with the email service. The service is now added to the dashboard, so I can click the launch to go onto the Cloudant dashboard, and here we see all the functionality available with Cloudant, including the databases that we currently have, application, warehousing, and our account. So for now, I'll close that and add the Sendgrid service to my Bluemix account. So again, I need to go to Services and APIs, type in Sendgrid, and here it brings up Sendgrid. So we need to follow the same steps, create the service, right now it's complaining that I don't have a credit card added to my account. Usually there's a free plan available here, but I think right now it's taken down for maintenance, so it won't let me create the service, but I already have a service pre-created that I use for my own project. So all I have to do is return to my dashboard and I'll see that the service is already there. So this is my BOLO Sendgrid service. So to get the information for associating this Cloudant service into our environment variables, we would have to click on the left hand side where it says services, click the name of the service, in this case it's Cloudant NoSQL, and then click on service credentials. Here it's going to bring up all the credentials necessary for the environment variable file. So before I go ahead and copy these, I want to make a copy of the environment file, as this one is just there for a sample. So in command line, I'm going to rename my example file into, actually I want to rename the copy to just .env. So now I have that .env file in there. Now I can open the .env. It's going to open with Sublime. Now I just have to fill out every single field with the information from the Bluemix dashboard. So for Cloudant host, I can get the host. The port should stay the same, the username. Password. And the URL for the Cloudant service. It's really long, so make sure you copy everything exactly as you need it. For the session secret and the password sought, you can just leave these defaults, but when you go to production, you want to make sure these are something that's pretty complex, like a UUID. Also, because we're using Sendgrid, I'm going to use my Sendgrid API key from the service that I already have created. In order to generate this API key, you would have to go onto the Bluemix console, click on the Sendgrid service, hit manage, hit open up the dashboard for Sendgrid. And then here under settings, you will see API keys. And then we would just hit the create API key and a general API key. So you just give it a new name and you can choose all the access for that key. I usually give it full access for sending mail, as that's the primary reason we want to use it, and read access to everything else. But you can go ahead and choose these as you wish, and you can give it any name. And all this is going to do is generate this key, which you will paste inside the environment file. I'm not going to use this key because I already have one that I use, so I won't need it. So actually I'll just go ahead and delete this. That shows you how to create the API key for Sendgrid. So I'll close this out, head back to the dashboard, and go back to my environment file. So this should be good to go. I'll just save it. And now I can run the npm start command in my project directory, and it should find those credentials and start the application. So now it says that the application is listening on port 3000, so I should be able to go to localhost 3000, and it should start up the application, which is right here. So this is how to get the system up and running. In terms of logging into the system, you won't be able to actually log in as the database is completely empty by default. So what you would need to do is run a script that populates the database with a user account. These scripts can be found in the script folder. So if I change into that directory, I'll see all the scripts currently available. We have one here for creating the agency. Create JSONs is for creating the PO's accounts. Create user helper creates a few users to let you log into the system. And Cloudant reset.db -db sets the database to default state. So usually every time you start the system brand new, you just brought it onto, did the fresh install onto your system. What you want to do is run the Cloudant reset database script. This is going to actually create a database for you. If you already had it pre-existing, it would destroy it and restart it to default state, so you have to be careful when you run this script. But since it's the first time we're running it, it should be okay to do it. And then I would say yes. There's no database to destroy, so it's moving on. It creates the design documents needed. So before any user is actually created into the system, you should always create an agency first. So I'm gonna go ahead and run the agency helper creation script. This is gonna create a default agency into the system. Then once that's done, I can run the user creation script, and this will create a few default accounts. This is the officer, the root, and the admin, and the supervisor accounts. So I want to log in with the root. All of these use the same exact password, so you would just put in the username. Actually, I have to restart the application. So npm start again. Then I do refresh the page, type in root, and then the password would be password 1 exclamation with the P being capital, and that'll log you onto the system. So this is basically how you get this application running locally. And to do any changes to the code, you would just use your preferred IDE and open the project in that IDE. I usually use WebStorm, so if I wanted to do some code development, I would open up WebStorm and then open up that new project that I created through WebStorm. And there I could make changes to the code as wanted. That basically sums up the steps required to get the application running locally in your environment and to be able to do maintenance on the code as needed. Thank you for watching, and if you find that anything is lacking, you can read the documentation on the GitHub README.